The galaxy was calm. Stars twinkled peacefully across the endless stretch of space, their light bright and steady. No signs of trouble anywhere. No signs of war. Just the usual quiet hum of the universe, as if everything was in its place. On Earth, it was another regular day. People went about their lives. Some worked, some played, and some slept. Life was as it had always been, without any indication that anything was about to change. The skies above were clear, the air fresh, and the Earth appeared peaceful. Yet, deep in the far corners of Earth's atmosphere, something was stirring, something hidden from the view of every satellite, every telescope, and every alien spy ship watching the planet. A ship, one of Earth's greatest secrets, was preparing for the moment it had been waiting for, waiting to be unleashed. This ship had been built in total secrecy, far away from the eyes of other civilizations. Its existence was known to only a small group of humans, chosen to carry out one of the most important missions of Earth's history. The ship was enormous, far larger than any known human vessel. It was built using technology no other race had even dreamed of. It had been designed for a purpose greater than just warfare. Its mission was simple: to protect humanity, to show the galaxy that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated. For years, it lay dormant, hidden beneath the moon's shadow, protected by layers of security that even the most advanced alien races had failed to breach. No one knew it was there. No one except for the secret crew assigned to its command. The crew had always known that one day they would be called upon. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, but they had also hoped it would never come. It was strange, in a way. They knew the ship was powerful enough to defend Earth from any threat, yet they also knew that its power would only be necessary if the galaxy's most dangerous forces decided to invade. It was a weapon, yes, but it was also a message to any who might try to destroy the human race. We are not weak. We are not helpless. And so, as the stars glittered overhead and the Earth remained blissfully unaware, the ship's engines began to hum. At first, it was a low vibration, almost imperceptible. But as the moments passed, the hum grew louder, until the entire ship seemed to shake with energy. The crew, led by Captain Area, stood in their stations, waiting for the signal. They had known this day would come, but nothing could prepare them for the moment they had all been dreading. The peaceful skies above Earth, which had been clear for so long, were about to change forever. The first officer, Lieutenant Parker, looked over at the captain. His face was pale but determined. "It's time, Captain," he said, his voice steady, but with a hint of excitement. Captain Area nodded, her eyes focused on the star charts in front of her. The coordinates were locked. The time had arrived. Humanity's hidden weapon was ready to be unleashed. "We've waited for this," she said, her voice calm but full of resolve. "Let's show them what we're capable of." In the control room, the rest of the crew stood in silence, their eyes glued to the monitors. Each of them knew the significance of what was about to happen. The ship was no ordinary warship. It was a fortress, a masterpiece of human engineering. Inside its massive hull, there were weapons that could level entire fleets, shields strong enough to withstand the fiercest of alien attacks, and advanced AI systems that would allow the ship to fight autonomously if necessary. But what made the Horizon truly unique was its stealth technology. It could hide in plain sight, invisible to every radar, every sensor. No one would know it was coming, until it was too late. Captain Area stood tall as the moment arrived. The ship's engines roared to life, sending a surge of power through every system. The ship's eye, a voice both familiar and cold, spoke to the crew. "Powering up all systems. Estimated time to full activation, 30 seconds. The hum of the engines turned into a deep, resonating sound that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space itself. The energy in the control room was palpable. The crew held their breath, their hands hovering over buttons and levers, ready to spring into action the moment they were given the order. Outside the ship, beyond the moon's shadow, space was still. No one could see what was about to happen. And yet, the first signs of something unusual were beginning to spread through the galaxy. A series of small, almost imperceptible vibrations were detected by nearby alien vessels. A small fluctuation in the cosmic energy. A ripple, barely noticeable, but enough to cause concern for those who were paying attention. Far beyond Earth's orbit, the alien fleets moved silently, unaware of the storm brewing just under their noses. They had come to Earth for one reason: to conquer it. Earth had always been seen as a weak planet, a fragile piece of rock in the vastness of space. The alien forces had assumed that they could sweep through it with ease. They had no idea that the horizon had been waiting, hidden from their eyes. No idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries. The tension in the control room was growing. Lieutenant Parker's hand hovered over the launch button, his eyes flicking to Captain Area. She gave him a single nod. The ship's systems were online. The time had come. As the engines roared louder, the Horizon's stealth capabilities activated. The ship became invisible to every sensor, every radar, every alien ship in the vicinity. It slipped through space, unnoticed and undetected. Humanity's hidden weapon was finally moving, ready to show the galaxy that Earth would no longer be a target. And as the Horizon moved out from its hiding place, the stars above Earth seemed to tremble. The peaceful, quiet sky was no longer just a backdrop for the universe. It was the stage for the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's history. The hidden ship, the Horizon, slipped silently through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming softly, barely detectable by any alien sensors. Its stealth systems were active, making it invisible to anything that might try to detect it. The ship's course was precise, its destination clear. For the crew aboard, there was no turning back now. They had spent years waiting for this moment, and now that it had come, the mission was about to unfold. Captain Area stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the star charts in front of her, the glow of the navigation screens casting an eerie light on her face. "Lieutenant Parker," she said, her voice calm but firm, "set course for the edge of the Galata Nebula. We'll be in position to intercept their first fleet in 2 hours." Parker nodded, his fingers moving quickly across the control panel. The rest of the crew were busy at their stations, watching the various systems flicker to life as the ship continued its silent journey through space. It had been years since they had last ventured beyond Earth's atmosphere, and the silence of space had a way of making everything feel surreal. Yet there was no time for distractions. The mission was clear, and everyone aboard had one goal: to protect Earth from those who wished to conquer it. "All systems online, Captain," the ship's AI voice said, a mechanical tone that was both cold and efficient. "Stealth mode activated. Sensors are showing no signs of detection." "Good," Captain Area replied, her eyes narrowing. "Keep it that way. We don't want to attract any attention just yet." The crew had been briefed on the gravity of the situation. Earth had always been a peaceful planet, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had considered Earth a mere backwater, not worth their attention. But things had changed. The alien forces that had once ignored the planet now saw Earth as a prize to be taken. These invaders, hungry for new resources, wanted to strip Earth of its natural wealth, its people, and its very identity. They had planned to invade quietly, without warning, and crush any resistance they might face. What the alien forces did not know was that humanity had been preparing for their arrival. Earth's hidden ship, the Horizon, was humanity's last line of defense. No one in the galaxy, not even the most powerful alien factions, had ever seen anything like it. Its technology was far beyond anything Earth's enemies had ever encountered. Designed with a unique blend of human ingenuity and alien influences, it was capable of things no one could have predicted. The ship's cloaking technology made it virtually undetectable. Its weapons systems were capable of disabling entire fleets with a single strike. And it had one more thing no one else had: the resolve of humanity itself. As the Horizon approached the Galata Nebula, a mysterious and dense cloud of gas and dust that could hide the ship from prying eyes, The crew knew that the time to act was drawing closer. They would need to move fast. Once they entered the nebula, there would be no turning back. The alien fleets were already on their way to Earth, their massive warships cutting through space, heading straight for the unsuspecting planet. The goal was to strike fast, take control of Earth's resources, and crush any resistance. Captain Aria's mind raced through the possibilities. The galaxy's most powerful empires were coming, but they had no idea what they were up against. She knew that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. Earth was not a weak and defenseless world anymore. The human race had faced countless challenges, from environmental disasters to wars that seemed impossible to win. But they had always survived. They had always found a way. And now, with the horizon at their disposal, they would show the galaxy that humanity would not be defeated without a fight. The ship's engines hummed louder as the crew prepared for the upcoming operation. Lieutenant Parker glanced over at the captain, sensing the tension in the air. "We're approaching the nebula, Captain. The fleet will be in range in just a few minutes." Captain Aria nodded, her hand resting on the command console. She had spent years preparing for this moment. It was time to see if humanity's secret weapon could do what it was meant to do. It was time to take the fight to the invaders before they could even think of landing on Earth. As they entered the nebula, the ship's visibility dropped to zero. Space around them became an impenetrable darkness, filled with swirling clouds of gas and dust. The ship moved like a shadow, blending perfectly with its surroundings. There were no stars, no planets, no ships to be seen. It was as if the universe itself had disappeared, leaving only the ship and its crew alone in the vastness of space. The quietness of the nebula felt surreal, like an eerie calm before a storm. The crew had learned to accept the silence, but it still had a strange, almost oppressive quality to it. Suddenly, the ship's sensors lit up. Alien ships, dozens of them, were approaching from the far side of the nebula. They were massive, powerful, and moving fast. But the crew aboard the Horizon was not worried. The first step of the plan was simple: stay hidden. The second step, though, was where things would get interesting. The moment the alien ships entered the trap, the Horizon would strike. The countdown began. A low hum filled the control room, signaling that everything was ready. Captain Aria stood tall, her eyes fixed on the display. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she also felt a surge of pride. This was it. This was the beginning of humanity's stand. "All systems are ready," the AI's voice interrupted her thoughts. "We are in position." Captain Aria's fingers hovered above the controls. She had spent years preparing for this moment, but now, as the alien ships drew closer, she knew that nothing could truly prepare her for what was to come. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. "Let's make sure they never forget who we are," she said, her voice steady. Then, with a single press of a button, the Horizon's engines surged to life, and the ship's cloaking technology disengaged. The battle was about to begin. The moment the cloaking system deactivated, the Horizon came into full view, its massive frame cutting through the nebula like a shadow in the night. For the first time, the galaxy's most powerful invaders could see it, though they had no idea what they were looking at. The alien ships, still some distance away, continued their course, oblivious to the deadly weapon lying in wait just beyond their range. On the bridge of the Horizon, the crew watched the alien ships approach, their massive silhouettes growing larger with each passing second. The battle had begun, but it wasn't the kind of battle anyone expected. Humanity was not going to fight in the traditional way. There would be no fleets of warships colliding in space, no grand space battles between thousands of ships. The Horizon had a different plan, a plan designed to make the invaders realize, far too late, that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. Captain Aria stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the massive alien fleet. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but there was no fear. Fear had no place on the Horizon. They had prepared for this. They had trained for years. She knew exactly what to do. "Lieutenant Parker," she said, her voice steady but sharp, "initiate the first phase of the plan. Power up the pulse weapons." Parker's fingers flew over the controls, activating the weapon systems hidden deep within the Horizon's hull. The ship's pulse weapons were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Designed to disrupt the power systems of enemy ships, these weapons could disable entire fleets without a single shot being fired. And with the Horizon's stealth technology, no one would be able to trace the source of the attack. "Pulse weapons charging," Parker confirmed, his voice calm, but a flicker of excitement in his eyes. "Ready to fire on your command, Captain." Captain Area nodded. The tension in the control room was palpable, but there was no room for hesitation now. They had made their move. It was time to see how the alien fleets would respond. On the alien ships, everything seemed calm. The invaders were so sure of their victory that they didn't even consider the possibility that they might be walking into a trap. Their ships, large and imposing, moved through the nebula as if they owned the galaxy. They had no idea that they were about to face something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The larger alien fleet continued to push forward, its massive vessels cutting through the nebula's clouds of gas and dust. At the front of the fleet, the commander of the alien forces, General Zaroth, surveyed the battle ahead. He was a seasoned leader, accustomed to victories. His fleet had already destroyed countless planets, left countless civilizations in ruins. Earth was nothing more than a small, insignificant dot in his vast empire. To him, the human race was no more dangerous than an ant, a pest that could easily be crushed beneath his boot. "Prepare for arrival," General Zaroth's deep voice echoed in the command room of his ship. "Earth will soon fall beneath our might." But even as he spoke those words, something was happening. His sensors flickered for a brief moment, a tiny glitch in the readings. He dismissed it. After all, there was no reason to suspect anything unusual. But the glitch wouldn't go away. Something was off. He glanced at his crew, their faces tense as they monitored the ship's systems. They couldn't explain it, but they all felt it. They were being watched. "General, we've detected an anomaly," one of his officers said, his voice tight with concern. "Something in the nebula. We're not sure what it is, but it's interfering with our sensors." Zaroth gritted his teeth. "What do you mean, interfering?" He turned to face the officer, his voice rising with frustration. "We're in the middle of a mission. There's no time for glitches." But the officer didn't back down. "Sir, I'm telling you, something is there. Something that shouldn't be. We're not alone." Zaroth turned back to the view screen, his eyes narrowing. He could see the nebula swirling around them, but there was no sign of any other ships. He knew the region was filled with dust and gas, but it had never caused problems before. The ship's sensors should be picking up everything. So why was there a sudden disturbance? He had no answer, but deep inside, a small, nagging feeling of doubt crept into his mind. Something was coming, something that would change everything. Before he could react, a massive pulse of energy erupted from the depths of the nebula. The ship shook violently as the pulse hit, sending shockwaves through the entire fleet. On the horizon, Captain Area felt the vibration run through her ship. She had been expecting it, but the impact still sent a chill through her. The pulse had hit the alien fleet with perfect precision, causing massive disruptions in their systems. It was only the first wave, but it had been enough to take them by surprise. "Targets locked," Parker announced, his voice steady but with a hint of excitement. "The pulse has hit their systems. They're in disarray." Captain Area's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The alien ships were starting to scatter, their movements chaotic and uncoordinated. Some were trying to regain control of their systems, while others were drifting aimlessly through the nebula. The first wave had done its job. The invaders were rattled, confused, and most importantly, vulnerable. "Prepare the next phase," Captain Area ordered. "We're going in." The next phase was far more dangerous. The pulse weapons had created the opening, But now it was time for the Horizon to show its true power. The crew knew what was coming. The aliens, still reeling from the disruption, had no idea that the real fight was only just beginning. As the crew of the Horizon worked quickly to prepare for the next attack, General Zaroth's fleet was struggling to regain control. His officers scrambled to get the systems back online, but the damage was too severe. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought this would be a simple conquest, but now they realized they were facing something they didn't understand. The next few moments would determine everything. Would the invaders regroup in time to turn the tide, or would humanity's hidden weapon finish what had been started? As the tension in space grew thicker, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The chaos among the alien fleet grew. Ships that were once majestic and imposing now floated aimlessly in the dense clouds of the nebula. Their once pristine hulls were now dented and scorched from the first pulse attack. General Zaroth stood on the bridge of his flagship, fists clenched, watching his fleet fall apart on the view screen. His command was in shambles. The pulse attack had caused complete disarray, and it was clear that his forces were struggling to regain control. "Report." Zaroth's voice thundered across the bridge, his anger palpable. "What is happening to my fleet?" The officers at the controls scrambled, trying to make sense of the mess. "General, we are experiencing complete power failures across several ships. The communication systems are down. We can't establish contact with half the fleet. Our weapons are offline. We are under attack." Zaroth's eyes burned with rage. He had led countless conquests, and yet here he was, stunned by a surprise attack from a species he had long considered weak. He couldn't fathom how something like this could happen. He had underestimated Earth, underestimated humanity. On the other side of the nebula, Captain Aria stood at the helm of the Horizon, her eyes fixed on the display as her crew worked swiftly to set the next phase into motion. The first attack had worked. The aliens were confused and disorganized, which was exactly what she needed. But the mission was far from over. She had prepared for this day for years, and now she was about to show the galaxy just how dangerous humanity could be. "Parker, prepare the next phase," she said, her voice steady but full of determination. "Lock onto the alien flagship. Target their engines. We can't let them regroup." Parker's fingers danced across the control panel, bringing up the targeting systems. "Locked on, Captain. Their engines are vulnerable. They won't be able to escape once we disable them." Captain Aria nodded. "Fire when ready." The Horizon's weapon systems hummed to life once more. The ship's energy gathered, focusing on a single target, General Zaroth's flagship. The ship's massive cannons powered up, and with a deafening sound that shook the Horizon, a powerful energy beam shot out from the ship's weapons array. The beam, charged with immense power, streaked through the nebula, heading directly for the alien flagship. It hit its target with pinpoint accuracy. On Zaroth's flagship, the crew had no time to react. The massive energy beam struck the ship's engines, sending shockwaves through its hull. Sparks flew, and the engines sputtered as they shut down completely. The ship began to drift, its once proud form now crippled and vulnerable. General Zaroth's eyes widened in disbelief as he watched his flagship go dark. His ship, his pride, was rendered helpless in an instant. The power failure was immediate and complete. Panic spread across the bridge. The once perfectly organized fleet was now spiraling into confusion. The rest of the alien fleet, sensing the vulnerability of their flagship, began to scatter, attempting to flee the deadly weapon that had just crippled their leadership. "This is impossible," Zaroth growled, his voice tinged with fear. "How could they do this to us?" His officer, panic evident in their voice, turned to him. "Sir, they've disabled our engines. We're helpless. We can't move." Zaroth's fists slammed against the console. "Get me a status on the rest of the fleet," he demanded, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. As the crew scrambled to regain control, Zaroth's thoughts raced. He had never encountered a force like this before. The human ship, the Horizon, had taken out his flagship in a single strike. The humans were no longer the weak, insignificant species he had assumed they were. They were something else entirely, something that could turn the tide of this battle, and perhaps the entire war. Meanwhile, Captain Area remained calm on the horizon. The initial strike had been a success, but there was no time to relax. The alien fleet was still dangerous, and they were unpredictable. If Zarath somehow regained control, he would retaliate. They had to finish this now before the aliens could regroup and launch a counterattack. Parker, target their fleet. Focus on their weapons systems, Captain Area ordered. The ship's weapons powered up again, and the Horizon launched a series of devastating strikes on the scattered alien ships. Each shot was precise, disabling one ship after another. The invaders, now scattered and disoriented, were unable to mount an effective defense. The Horizon's weapons were too powerful, and the crew's coordination was flawless. Lieutenant Parker's voice rang out with each successful strike. Target destroyed. Another one disabled. Captain. The alien fleet was collapsing. There was no coordinated defense. There was no counterattack. The invaders were being picked apart, one by one, as the Horizon continued to move through their ranks with deadly precision. It was a stunning display of humanity's power and ingenuity. On Zarath's flagship, the general's mind raced. He knew this wasn't over. Even though his flagship had been disabled, he still had a fleet of warships under his command. There was still a chance to turn this around. But as he looked at the damage, he realized something critical. The human ship wasn't just strong, it was clever. It had anticipated every move the aliens might make. It had already outplayed them at every turn. "Sir, the rest of the fleet is reporting heavy damage. We can't stop them," one of his officers said, his voice trembling. Zarath's face twisted with frustration. "Prepare a counteroffensive. We will not be defeated by a primitive race." But the truth was, Zarath knew the fight was slipping away from him. His fleet was in ruins, and he had no way of stopping the Horizon. The humans had done the impossible. They had taken his fleet apart, piece by piece, and now they were closing in for the final strike. On the Horizon, Captain Area stood at the helm, her focus unwavering. This is it. One final push. Disable their remaining ships and finish this. The crew worked swiftly, bringing the last of the alien ships into range. The pulse weapons fired once more, sending devastating waves of energy toward the remaining invaders. The alien fleet was falling apart. In a matter of minutes, what had once seemed like an unstoppable force was now reduced to nothing more than debris floating in the dark of the nebula. As the last alien ship fell silent, the crew of the Horizon exhaled in relief. The battle was over. The invaders had been defeated. Humanity had won, but the war was far from over. This was just the beginning. General Zarath stood on his crippled flagship, his eyes fixed on the view screen. His pride, his fleet, and his dreams of conquering Earth were all gone. But as he watched the last of his forces fall, he realized something. The galaxy would never forget what had happened here. The humans had done what no one else could have ever done. They had taken on the might of a galactic empire and turned the tide in their favor. And in that moment, Zarath knew that the war was far from over. The humans had only just begun to fight. As the remnants of the alien fleet drifted in the void, their once mighty ships now just lifeless husks floating among the stars, the crew of the Horizon stood in stunned silence. They had just delivered a blow that no one could have predicted. The battle was won, but the feeling of victory was tempered by the realization that this was only the beginning. Captain Area stood at the front of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back, staring out at the chaotic debris field where the alien fleet had been just moments ago. "We did it, Captain," Lieutenant Parker said quietly, his voice filled with awe. He had seen the incredible destruction firsthand, yet he could hardly believe it. "We've crushed them." But Captain Area knew better. There was no time for celebration. This was merely the first step in a much larger conflict. She had been in battle long enough to understand that victories could quickly turn into defeats if complacency took hold. The enemy may have been crushed for now, but they were not finished. Parker, get me a report on the status of the fleet. Are there any survivors? Aria's voice was firm, every word laced with the same calm determination that had led them through the chaos. Parker turned back to his station, his fingers tapping swiftly over the controls. The remaining ships are attempting to regroup, Captain. The fleet is in disarray, but some of their smaller vessels are still operational. It seems some of them are attempting to escape the nebula and retreat. Aria didn't flinch. They won't get far. A low hum filled the bridge as the Horizon's engines powered up again, the ship readying itself for the next phase of the operation. The team had a singular focus now: prevent the remaining aliens from escaping. The first wave had been devastating, but the battle wasn't over. If even one ship escaped, it could relay information about Earth's defenses, about humanity's hidden weapon, and that would be disastrous. Set course for the remaining vessels. We can't let any of them leave this sector, Aria ordered. She turned back to her crew, her gaze sweeping over each of them. They had come this far together, and they would finish this together. As the Horizon surged forward, Captain Aria's thoughts flashed to the bigger picture. The aliens hadn't expected humanity to fight back. To them, Earth had been nothing more than a resource-rich world, ripe for the taking. They hadn't anticipated the ingenuity, the resilience, and the raw determination of the human race. And now, the aliens were beginning to learn that lesson the hard way. Captain, Lieutenant Parker said, breaking her thoughts, we're getting a transmission from the alien flagship. Well, what's left of it? It's encrypted, but it looks like an emergency distress call. It's a message from General Zarath. Aria raised an eyebrow. The alien general was still alive. She had assumed that with his flagship disabled, he would have been taken out. But now, it seemed that the enemy general was trying to rally what was left of his forces. Patch it through, Aria ordered, her voice calm yet deadly serious. She had no intention of letting Zarath regain control, but she was curious to hear what he had to say. The screen flickered, and the distorted image of General Zarath appeared. His face was twisted with rage and frustration, and it was clear that he was struggling to maintain some semblance of command, despite the destruction around him. This isn't over, human. Zarath's voice crackled through the speakers. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from finished. The Galactic Council will send reinforcements. You will fall, just as the others have. The message ended abruptly, leaving nothing but static behind. Captain Aria stared at the screen for a moment, her expression hardening. The alien general's words echoed in her mind. The Galactic Council will send reinforcements. It was a warning, but also a threat. The aliens had underestimated humanity before, but if they truly believed reinforcements would make a difference, they were in for a rude awakening. Aria turned to her crew. We've only delayed them, not defeated them. They'll be back, and we need to be ready for whatever comes next. The crew nodded in agreement. Everyone on the bridge understood the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a military victory. It was the beginning of something much larger. The aliens would return, and they would bring an army unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about surviving the wrath of an entire galactic empire. Captain, Lieutenant Parker said again, pulling Aria's attention back to the present. We've detected multiple incoming ships. They're coming in fast, from the edge of the nebula. Are they alien ships? Aria asked, her voice steady despite the urgency building in her chest. Affirmative. They're alien ships, but these are different. There are more of them. They're larger. Aria's heart skipped a beat. The reinforcements. Exactly, Parker replied grimly. They're coming to finish what Zarath started. Captain Aria took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future. If these reinforcements were allowed to reach Earth, the consequences would be catastrophic. But Aria knew one thing. Humanity would not go down without a fight. They had already shown that they could defeat the alien fleet once, and they would do it again if necessary. "Prepare the weapons," she ordered. "Prepare the crew. We're not going to give them a chance to land a single blow." The crew worked swiftly, moving into action without hesitation. The Horizon's weapons powered up once more, the ship readying itself for the second wave of the battle. Captain Aria stood at the helm, her eyes steely with determination. "They think they can crush us. They think that because we're human, we're weak," she muttered under her breath. "But they're wrong. We're not weak. We're survivors." The first of the reinforcements appeared on the view screen, massive ships emerging from the edges of the nebula. The alien ships were unlike anything Aria had seen before. They were larger, faster, and more heavily armed than the previous fleet. But that didn't matter. Humanity had one advantage that no other species had: the will to fight. "They may have bigger ships," Aria said, her voice firm, "but we have something they'll never understand. We fight for our home. We fight for each other. And that's what's going to win this war." As the Horizon moved forward, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The alien reinforcements were upon them, and the final battle for Earth was about to begin.